So there's been a court case this week. A young man, Henry Novak, was murdered. Um, he was stabbed to death, and his attacker. I'm not going to use the attacker's name here, partly because it's all over the press, but also because there's so much kind of racism associated with the Sikh community, such a kind of a racist focus on the Sikh community. I don't want to kind of add to that and amplify it. Anyway, his murderer was a young Sikh man, and the line that is now coming from the UK Reform Party, and this is the bit worth digging into. The line that's coming from the UK Reform Party is very much a rights for whites um, spin on this. Sarah Vine in the Daily Mail, kind of right wing fellow traveller, said that, in America, that likened the death of this young white man to the murder of George Floyd. This is going to be ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous comparison. And by logical extension, white people are somehow the kind of the oppressed, persecuted minority or majority here in the UK. And if you divorce the events from their context, you can say any sort of shit, basically. It's worse with Farage because he has said that now the public must react with, I think he used the word, with cold rage. Cold rage. Um, and the subtext to this, whenever people talk in kind of explicitly racially violent terms, they try to dance around what they're really trying to implore others to do. But the subtext here is that the public is white people, and the subject of the cold rage should therefore be non-white people. Now, if you look at the Jewish pogrom of 1938, the Kristallnacht, the language that Goebbels uses is that the language of anger. That the Aryan German community, following the assassination of a German consular official in Paris by an angry Jewish young Jewish man whose parents had been dumped in the kind of the no man's land between the German and the Polish border. A guy called Herschel Grünspan shot this consular official, and it was the excuse that the Nazis needed for a pogrom against the Jews. And the way that Goebbels tried to spin it was that there should be this kind of righteous anger. Finally, the Aryan people have had enough, blah, blah, blah. And of course, it wasn't by and large done by the German public. It was, police auxiliaries, brown shirts, SS men, and then people, parts of the population begin to kind of join in after that. So it was all kind of manufactured and artifice and all that kind of thing. But why is the Reform Party, that kind of flirts with sort of fascist language when it suits it, but is often really trying to appeal to a kind of an angry and disgruntled lower middle class that see themselves as hardworking, see themselves as having to play by the rules, and see everybody else as a kind of basically lazy piss taker? That's the core constituency. Self-employed small business people that are fed up with everything that they are fed by the Daily Mail. They see endless stories of scroungers and immigrants, and see their work, their kind of hard works going to sort of support all that. And that's the resentment that the Reform Party feed on. often when you talk to people that are interested in voting for reform, very rarely are you talking to a kind of someone with actual neo-Nazi views. Very rarely are you talking to somebody who has openly fascist ideas, and often fascist parties are voted into power by people who aren't particularly fascist. They're just fed up about X, Y, or Z. Um, so why this kind of shift to very, very overt fascist language? It will be alienating to some people. Well, it's because Rupert Lowe's Restore Party, which is funded by Elon Musk, has now begun to eat into the core fascist vote of reform. And Farage, is, say what you like about him, is not an unskilled political actor. He knows what he's doing. He's a very clever guy, and everything he says is deliberate. Um, and even things that don't look deliberate are deliberate. And he knows precisely what he's doing. And the language, sort of the overtly fascist language, the cold rage, which is the language of violence. I mean, it is. You can't, because of the way in which law around British public speech is constructed, and incitement to racial hatred. You can't go all out and demand a pogrom, but there's a violent subtext to that language. And he's saying it because he knows that it will hopefully land with some of the core constituency of fascists, because every political movement is a kind of coalition. And he has to keep the fascists on board, along with the kind of the right of centre middle tier of the voters, and the kind of the wealthier retirees, and the people who are united by certain kinds of resentment. If he loses even some of that vote, then the reform start looking as if they cannot create a majority at the next election, and things will spiral from there onwards. I mean, Farage's fortunes in the last 6 months have been in decline. They may have reached their high watermark, he's hoping, but in the last 6 months things have kind of been in decline, in terms of polling and in terms of defeats in places like Gorton and Denton. And whatever happens in Wigan with Andy Burnham, it doesn't look like Reform are a shoo-in necessarily. I mean, they may still win yet, but it's not on a plate. So things feel uncertain, and there's a kind of like a general mood music around Farage that he hasn't been seen as much of recently. There's some scandals following him around about dodgy money. He normally seems to shake those sorts of things off, but less so at the moment. And now he is using this explicitly fascist rhetoric, violent rhetoric, which may yet lead to real violence. Um, he was very canny when the Southport riots happened in 2024. There was the accusation that these were the Farage riots, and part of it was indeed, prompted by his own pronouncements at the time. But if this ends up in violence this time, he might not be quite so lucky in avoiding the blame. There is, whenever you see GB News, the Daily Mail, Farage, and various kind of provocateurs online saying basically the same thing, it's part of a kind of you can know it's kind of part of a broader attempt to shape an agenda. And at the moment, the agenda is, poor benighted white people under attack from the evil brown horde. And of course, what happened to the young man in question is absolutely appalling and shocking and horrible. And a lot of it has to do with kind of obviously police negligence at the time. The young man had been stabbed. He was telling the police that he'd been stabbed and they were handcuffing him. So there are some vested interests involved, more than happy to kind of shift the blame away from kind of police negligence. Um, but the tragedy of this, and there's tragedy to the family, and part of the perpetrator's family have also been have also been implicated in being accessories to the crime. Is that this will now be weaponized. The victims' families have said they do not want the memory of their son to be used in this way, and it's a pretty despicable thing that if much as with the murder of Lee Rigby, the soldier who was killed by jihadist terrorists, outside his barracks in London. It's a pretty low and despicable thing that if you're a political operator or a newspaper columnist, that you cannot respect the basic wishes of a family grieving their child. But there you go. That's the modern far right in Great Britain. So, thoughts? And I'll catch you on the next little video when I do it. Bye bye.